Hello and welcome to our webinar on competitive industries in Horizon 2020. My name is Juliane Sauer and I will guide you through today's webinar. On the next slide, you will see the outline of today's event. After I have explained the setup of this webinar, my colleague Marion Tobler will give you an overview. Then Patrick Furrer will give you insight into ICT in Leadership in Enabling and Industrial Technology, LEIT. Afterwards, Gerhard Gass will speak about biotechnology in Horizon 2020. And then, for the closing, Marion Tobler will explain nanotechnology, materials and industrial processes. A question and answer session will complete our webinar. On this slide, you can see the setup. On the large window to your left, you will always see the slides of our presentations. On the upper right-hand corner, you will see a picture of the respective speaker, and below it, you'll have the chat window for your questions. Please ask your questions during the presentations. We will be happy to take notes and get back to you afterwards. You might already be familiar with the general structure of Horizon 2020. The competitive industries pillar is the second pillar of the three-pillar structure. I now hand over the microphone to my colleague Marion Tobler for a more complete overview.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marion Tobler, and I will give you a first overview on the areas that you can expect in Leadership in Enabling and Industrial Technology, short LEIT. Now it is important in the next slide that you do not only see what kind of topics we will have or areas, but also understand what is the strategy behind this guidelines and this information that we give you about the LEIT. First of all, you have on top and also on the bottom an information about these key enabling technologies, which are a strategic investment, for instance, in advanced manufacturing, microelectronics, to underpin innovation across existing and emerging sectors. And these are based on the input of high-level groups, which proposed a roadmap with people from industry. Secondly, we have the access to risk finance. And this goes in line with the strategy that Europe needs to attract more private investment in research and innovation. And third, we have the area of innovation in SMEs. Reason for that is Europe needs more innovative SMEs to create growth and jobs. So this is the base to get more involved into areas which are closer to the market. In my next slide, I will give you an overview so that you can get an orientation on where to find your topics. The ICT topics will have a strong base in the competitive industries, but you will also find some topics in the future emerging technologies, which are in the first pillar on excellent science, and also in most or in really all areas of better societies, so in the third pillar. In the next slide, you get the overview where people in biotechnology research can find their topics. My colleague will talk about the topics in industrial leadership, but there will be more topics in the area of food in the societal challenges. And third, in the next slide, you find the topics in NMP, which means nanotechnology materials and processes, who also have a focus in the competitive industries, but there will be some topics also in the area of future and emerging technologies, and a very strong industrial sector can be found in the societal challenge of climate and resource efficiency. Before I hand over now to my colleagues, I would like to give you some information about news, which means special aspects in a new program and an overview on a certain program which becomes even more important within Horizon 2020. Well, you see now a presentation on something called Technology Readiness Levels, TRL. You're very well advised in taking notice on each individual project on what that TRL should be. TRL stands for the closeness to the market. And if we talk about FP7 projects, we have been mainly in technology readiness levels from 1 to 5, which means from the basic principles that have to be developed up to the technical validation in relevant environment. Now, within Horizon 2020, we are going much closer to the market. We will have the key enabling technology pilot lines that go from the system, from the point where the technology validation is tested in relevant environment, up to the validation of complete systems and qualified. So this is a further step close to the market. That you have to take into account when you get interested in LIT. Now, the last slide that I would like to present you in the overview are the public-private partnerships. These are cooperations between industry and academia, the private part and the public part in several areas. Some of you may know the PPPs from the last framework program, but in next framework program we will have much more of these PPPs. They are called the so-called contractual PPPs because they will follow exactly the general rules of Horizon 2020. And you have the list of those who are planned to be already mentioned in the first calls, that is Factories of the Future, Energy Efficient Buildings, European Green Car Initiative, Future Internet, Smart City, a new one, Sustainable Process Industries, buyers called, and then we have a so-called institutional PPPs, or maybe you can know it also as GTI, called Bridge. This stands for Bio-Based and Renewable Industries. There will be more PPPs in Horizon 2020. So we have information so far that there will be one in photonics, one in robotics, secure technology for maritime border surveillance, and 5G. With this overview, I'd like to hand over to Patrick Furrier, my colleague, who will give you the most important information about ICT.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Patrick Furrier, National Contact Point for ICT, and I will briefly present you now the ICT area in the leadership in enabling and industrial technologies. As my colleague Marion already said, ICT is spreading all across the Horizon 2020 with a home in the competitive industries or light. But you also see, and this is to remind you that ICT topics will be covered in FET, will be covered as well in Better Society. Now, if we go a little bit into more details on what's going on in competitive industries for ICT, here you can see the first set of challenges. For ICT, about 8 billion euros are currently foreseen for this part of the program. And for this amount, we will cover 6 challenges: a new generation of components and systems, next generation computing, future internet, content technologies and information management, advanced interface and robots, and the last one here, called micro and nanoelectronics and photonics, is actually the one that belongs to the key enabling technologies mentioned already by my previous colleague, Marion. So now what I want to do in the next few minutes is for each of the 6 challenges, go a little bit more in details on what each of these challenges is covering. For the first challenge, new generation of components and systems, it actually covers smart cyber-physical systems, smart system integration, and an advanced thin, organic, and large area electronics technologies. The second challenge is kind of new in the ICT program. It's called Advanced Computing, and it is focusing on customized and low-power computing. The third challenge is well known already. It has started very strongly in FP7. It is called Future Internet and covers, in Horizon 2020, smart networks, novel internet architectures, smart optical and wireless networks, advanced cloud infrastructures and services, tools and methods for software development, which is closely related to Future Internet, which is an interface between telecom operators' needs and software developments. And it is adding an objective that was not in this area before. It is collective awareness platforms for sustainability and social innovation. Plus, of course, it covers FIRE+, the Future Internet research and experimentation. The fourth challenge, content technologies and information management, is covering two main areas. The first one is big data. And big data has different sub-objectives, which I will detail a bit further down the presentation. The second big objective is the linguistics and language technologies. It's cracking the language barrier. Now, on top of that, we also find technologies for creative industries, multimedia, and convergence. We also find learning, ICT for learning, and cognitive systems, and as well advanced digital gaming, gamification technologies. And what is finishing this challenge is also multimodal and natural computer interactions. The challenge number 5 is robotics. It was a challenge by itself in the FP7 as well, so it is a continuation of this existing challenge, roadmap-based RDI in robotics. In roadmap-based, there is this assumption that the roadmap is produced by a PPP, like Marion was explaining, and this will be the PPP on robotics. Then we have some objectives that were in FP7 that haven't found a challenge yet, and they are called today cross-cutting and horizontal activities. It is not sure these challenges will remain at this place, but for the moment they are Internet of Things and platforms for connected smart objects, human-centric digital age, and the last one, cybersecurity and trustworthy ICT. Now, these were the key domains and areas of research, but besides these key domains, there are several cross activities that are linked to some of these domains. For instance, boosting public sector productivity and innovation. And here, of course, the cloud computing initiative at European level is strongly supporting this activity. Then, in ICT, of course, web entrepreneurship is a key area, and it is recognized as such by the ICT program in LIGHT, and there is a special action to fund web entrepreneurs. As well, the PPP on the 5th generation telecommunication is starting its work to define the program of the next networks. And finally, big data innovation and take-up are an action that is supporting big data implementation by small companies. Now, if you look in other challenges like multimedia, for instance, you have the support for growth for SMEs, again, on innovative creative industries, We also have support from the framework program for the key enabling technologies, and here especially for photonics, and as well, you will see that we have more than 30% of the key enabling technology budget that is funding cross-cutting key enabling technologies across all key enabling technologies. I want to finish this slide by international collaboration, which will happen mostly in FIRE and on advanced cyber infrastructures with Brazil, but as well on NetFutures with Japan in the first work programs that will cover the first 2 years of Horizon 2020. Let me finish this presentation by the challenge 6, which hasn't disappeared. It is there, but It is the special challenge called Key Enabling Technology. In this challenge, we are focusing much more on the need of industry, and this challenge was, in fact, written by the PPPs that are actually today in ICT GTIs. They are nano electronics and embedded systems GTIs, which are called ENIAC and Artemis, and that will be merged in Horizon 2020 into Excel. Part of this work program is also written by the Photonics PPP. You'll see the 4 challenges: generic micro and nanoelectronic technologies, ICT for manufacturing. Now it's finding its place here under the CAT. And the third one is ICT-enabled modeling, simulations, analytics, and forecasting technologies. And the final one is driven by photonics, the development of novel materials and systems for OLED lighting and displays. That's finishing my presentation. And in the last slide, you see the names of myself and my colleague who can give you further information on this area. I pass now the floor to Gerhard Gass, who will present you the biotech kit.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's move to biotech for the next few minutes. The objective of biotechnology research and innovation is to develop competitive industrial products and processes in a broad field of sectors like health, chemical, energy, agriculture, forestry, and food. Having a closer look, we see these 3 main focus areas. Among the first area, the synthetic biology has to be mentioned, as well as the bioinformatics as supporting tools. The second area is dealing with novel products which cannot be produced by current methods, and in addition to replace industrial processes by more resource-efficient methods. The third area aims at developing metagenomic technologies in terms of increased accuracy and cost reduction. To close my presentation, let's have a look at BRIDGE, the public-private partnership. BRIDGE is already drafting a work program in order to launch calls according to the rules of Horizon 2020. The vision of this PPP is that the bio-based industries will optimize land use and food security through a sustainable, resource-efficient and largely waste-free utilization of Europe's renewable raw materials for industrial processing. On the next slide, you see my contact information, and now I pass again to Marion to close this webinar.
Hello, it's me again. I'm back with the area of nanotechnologies, material sciences, and processes. Now I will give you an overview on what in this area you can expect. On the next slide, you see a presentation which looks quite similar to the one that has been given by my colleague Patrick Fuhrer, so that you can get an orientation what is in which area. You can easily see that everything that has to do with micro and nanoelectronics has moved to Patrick Fuhrer's area. Now, what is remaining in nanotechnologies and advanced materials will be presented in 8 focus areas, giving you on a very general level an idea what kind of research is expected to be developed in the next call. We have the area of open access pilot lines for cost-effective nanocomposites. The integration of novel nanomaterials into existing production and assembly lines is a second focus area. Manufacturing and control of nanoporous materials is a third area. We also have high definition and high throughput 2D and 3D printing of multifunctional materials. Then, synthesis and functionalization of nanomaterials for printing applications. And novel nanomatrices and nanocapsules. Additive manufacturing for tabletop nanofactories. And in the end, we have multi-CAD pilot plans for the scale-up of innovative nanomedicine production. Now, this all shows you in which areas research and innovation is requested, but it doesn't give you yet the area of the industrial sector where the Commission wants to see this application. And in the next 2 slides, I will give you exactly this information. We are focusing, quite similar to ICT, certain challenges. Actually, we are having 6 challenges that will be requested for the next program. And as you can see, we calculate with an estimate of 215 million euro, which has to be confirmed for all these topics that will be called in these 6 challenges. Challenge number 1 is aiming to bridge the gap between nanotechnology research and market. And it addresses lightweight multifunctional materials and sustainable composites. A special focus will be on structure surfaces and functional fluids. The challenge 2 looks at nanotechnology and advanced materials as enablers of application in health. Here it goes about therapies for most important diseases to reach a certain point where they are ready to be used for the preparation of clinical trials, but they do not include these clinical trials yet. Challenge 3, nanotechnology and advanced materials for low carbon energy technologies and energy efficiency deal with 2 areas of focus. They go for an increase of use of renewable energy sources, especially increasing dramatically energy efficiency, and to develop a TRL for potential uptake in practical applications for further technologies for product development under the societal challenge, which then may be energy or climate action. So these were the first 3 challenges, and we go to the next slide where you find where else you can apply this nanotechnology and material research. Challenge 4 is titled as Tapping into the Cross-Sector Potential of Nanotechnologies and Advanced Materials to Drive Competitiveness and Sustainability. Well, this goes back very much to the strategy that I have mentioned in the introduction. And it deals mainly with different applications for economic sectors over certain sectors, including a competitiveness and sustainable economy. Enabling multi-sectoral potential and developing and advanced technologies readiness of solutions with breakthrough potential, and here especially international cooperation is very much envisaged, which means that we can also cooperate with countries outside of Europe. In Challenge 5, you are addressing safety of nanotechnology-based applications and support for development of regulation. So it shows both sides. Go for more and more substantial improvements product performance through the unique properties of engineered nanoparticles, and at the same time being aware and assessing the potential of health and safety risks. In Challenge 6, you are addressing generic needs in support of governance standards models and structuring in nanotechnology, advanced materials and production. Which means to deploy the CATS for the benefit of Europeans, industry and society in the areas of infrastructure, metrology and standards. And on the other hand, support skills and networking, go for further dissemination and communication issues, and later on to business models. With this 6 challenges presented, I go to a very special area, which is the PPPs. As I mentioned in the overview, the PPPs will be overarching activities. They go much further in the TRL than most of the other projects, and they will have 30% of the budget of the key enabling technologies. Now these PPPs in the area of NMP are mainly 3. We have Factories of the Future, which has been a PPP already in FP7, and it is aiming at producing more products with less material, less energy and less waste. On the other hand, it wants to foster and implement high-risk, innovative manufacturing technologies. All this has to be done not only for individual industries or individual companies, but for whole value-added chains to bring the requested effect. A similar area, a similar way of going to public-private partnerships are the energy-efficient buildings. Here, the aim is to reduce the energy consumption during the whole life cycle of the building, so from construction to the gaining of waste and new raw materials. At the same time, this has to be a contribution to decrease the US energy import dependence, so to become less dependent of energy support. The third PPP I want to present today is the sustainable process industry through resource and energy efficiency, SPIRE. This is a new one, and it wants to create growth and increase the competitiveness of Europe in a global market. It aims at renovate the European process industry to go for larger turnovers, more employment and innovative technologies, while at the same time reducing resources and energy inefficiency and to reduce the environmental impact of industrial activities. As you can easily understand, this is addressing industry which is known to use a lot of energy resources. With this information on the PPPs, I want just to spend a few words on areas where you also can find NMP topics, which are in the future emerging technologies, which you see on the left-hand side, together with many ICT topics, of course, and then in the pillar of societal challenges, where we will have, especially in the area of climate action, resource efficiency and raw materials, the use of Europe's mineral deposits, where you also have to color the whole value-added chain, including reuse, recycling, and substitution. And here, the aim is to develop adequate technologies. And with this, I will change my head and talk to you as the NCP Space. Space being another asset in industrial leadership with high relevance to Europe. Space systems produce information which often cannot be acquired in any other way, and hence space-based data is an important tool for effectively addressing many of the societal challenges and focus areas. The applications of space technologies are expected to be brought into societal challenges, especially in climate action, where you have the area of Earth observation. But there will be an area, space, which I will address here, with new ideas which ensure Europe's leadership in space-enabled applications outside of the societal challenges, and where space industry is directly addressed to become more competitive. The areas that will be covered are Earth observation, and here we have two areas, the space-enabled applications and tool for access to space data. The second area is competitiveness of the European space sector. So this means protection of European assets in and from space, e.g. our satellites. It includes European competitiveness in space technologies, which means Europe wants to become non-dependent on other space technology. We have an area of space science, which means pure exploration. And then we have a very interesting area called international cooperation in space matters, which then is exactly the opposite of the non-dependence. And here you have to find clearly your way on the topics where you can have international cooperation and where it is not aimed. The last area are the outreach and communication that are meant for European policy and European citizens. I will end my presentation with the contact details as my colleagues did. I would be happy to get your information or your email or my colleague Florina Schaffer. With this, I hand over back to Juliane, who will give you now the details on how we will deal with the questions.
Thank you very much to all of today's speakers. We have a couple of questions now. The first one did go directly to me, and it was an organizational question. Will you send the slides to the participants? Of course, all of you who are registered will receive in a follow-up email in the upcoming days the presentation in a PDF format and also the link to our YouTube channel where we will upload the whole webinar so you can listen to it whenever you feel like it again. I now have a question for my colleague Gerhard Gass.
There was a question about the names of the pillars. Is it competitive industries or is it industrial leadership? As far as we know now, the name is industry is the key. And to become the name a program, we can inform you that it is planned to have at least 20% SMEs in this program. Another question concerns the draft work programs. The question was if we already have work programs, and the answer is it depends on which program. As soon we have draft work programs of a certain quality, we will spread the information to you. So keep in contact with the national contact point of your domain.
Thank you very much, Gerhard. Now Patrick Furrer will answer the questions that came in regarding ICT and LEIT.
Okay, so the first question I got concerned, if we go back to the pillars, it was an opinion of one of you. ICT can intersect with many other areas. How did these priorities, how did we choose these priorities? So if you remember the ICT program in FP7, it had technological challenges, and most of them, you can find them in industrial leadership. That's where they are now. But we also had societal challenges in ICT, ICT for health, ICT for environment, ICT for learning. And part of those are now handed over to the societal challenges in Horizon 2020, which means part of these topics are now proposed by DG Connect to the DG Research units that are going to deal with them. So there is a transfer of the societal challenges to the societal challenges pillar. That's for the first question. So most of the topics you will find are either in one or in the other, and they were chosen based on the inputs from the community and mostly in the industry leadership from the PPPs. The second question we got was more specialized. It concerns ICT and NMP in light. Are these common calls foreseen or other new ways for synergy across these programs? As I mentioned in my presentation, and Marion also said about it, there will be cross-cutting key enabling technologies. As you can see from the program, in microelectronics, which is a cross-cutting technology, is foreseen ICT for manufacturing, and it will be in the cross-cutting calls merge with probably NMP, of course, with the other areas that are leading to manufacturing. So there are possible synergies. They will come in joint calls between ICT and NMP as they happened in the past, but now under the concept of key enabling technologies. The last question, I read it right now. What does it mean collaboration in advanced cyber infrastructure in Brazil and net futures in Japan? And why are these two areas important in the two cases? So here in Horizon 2020, the European Commission is specializing its collaboration at international level, which means outside Europe, on specific areas with specific regions of the world. In the first 2 years in this work program that we have the draft, I remind you that these are still drafts, there are only 2 actions selected already in advance, have been discussed with the Brazilian government and the Japan government, that these 2 governments want to invest jointly with the European Commission on exactly those kind of technologies. That's why these calls are currently drafted with those 2 countries or regions. That's finishing the questions for me, and I now pass the floor to Marion to answer the last questions.
Now I have got your last question, which is about the budget for the PPPs. I mentioned briefly it will be 30% of the budget, and there I have to specify it. We have under leadership in enabling and industrial technologies. Besides that, we have access to finance and innovation in SME. And if I refer to the budget, I mean the budget for leadership in enabling and industrial technologies. And thereof, we are expecting 30% for the PPPs. Now, for the exact details on the budget, we cannot tell anything because we don't have the figures yet. And if the second part of the question has to be answered, will it be distributed equally among the PPPs? I can only take a guess. If it is the same it used to be in the last framework program, it is not the equally spread. And moreover, the budget for each call in each year will be different. The PPPs are overarching activities, so they're not only in one area, but they will be covered from several program committees, and with that respect, we will have budgets that will be constructed for each call individually. I hope I could answer your question with this, and I hand over to Juliane for the end of this webinar.
Thank you very much to all of today's speakers for your presentations and for your answers to the questions. If there are still questions that should remain, please don't hesitate to contact the national contact points here in Switzerland. You have seen our contact data, or if you're listening to us in another country, you can look up the specific national contact point from your country. As said, we will send you all the slides, including the link to our YouTube channel, where you will find this recorded webinar in a follow-up email. Our next webinar will take place on October 14th, and it will deal with life sciences in Horizon 2020. We hope you will join us again. Goodbye, and have a very nice afternoon.